Hey, welcome to the Happy Rant podcast. I am Ted Cluck, joined as always in studio by Barnabas Piper and Ronald J. Martin. Boys, we got our full complement of hosts back. Ron is back off the road, feeling rejuvenated, back on Ashland Wi-Fi in the Ashland studio. And baby, do you want to give a little travel recap, or should we hop right into the sponsor?
Baby, it's good. Nothing too important to tell. It would just be standard tarmac fare. So just
tarmac stuff, standard Ronnie tarmac. So Piper, business is booming for the Happy Rant podcast. I'm not going to lie. We are a growth industry, and as such, we've got a sponsor. We've got a sponsor in the boat for a long time. Why don't you tell us about them?
We do have a sponsor, and I'm really glad Ron's back. In fact, it sounds from Ronnie's audio like he might actually be in one of these venues, so maybe he listened to last week's episodes because it sounds like he's recording from across a room. So the sponsor is Noah's Event Venues. They're a company who has venues across the country, multiple cities. We looked it up last week. I mean, it's literally coast to coast. And they have an entire setup designed for churches church plants or people looking to start additional campuses. Not aimed at you, Mark Diver. We know you're listening. You don't do campuses. But the rest of you who are doing multi-site, like Ronnie, who does churches everywhere, they might even have multiple campuses in Florida where, Ron, you can start a beach location.
Absolutely.
Or churches just looking for an additional space because you've outgrown yours, something like that. Or you're tired of meeting in some elementary school's cafeteria, whatever it is. With it comes all of the AV, microphones, podiums, projectors, TVs, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is very important so people can not listen to the sermon, but rather check their fantasy football lineups during the service.
Oh, lighting. Piper, that's convicting. That hits close to home.
starting next week, that'll convict me. I'm good right now.
Exactly.
And even Apple TVs. So that's pretty cool. They have parking. They have classroom spaces. I also learned, and this is important, they do have cafe spaces available, although I doubt they are up to Substance Church standards, and I didn't see anything about leather aprons.
Well,
little cafe space. I like it.
So, Ron, you have to bring that stuff with you. They have stages. They have all of this stuff, kitchens, etc. So, all of this for churches, if you go to noaheventvenue.com, so noaheventvenue.com/church, you can find out more about all this. And we discussed this last week, but they're really nice venues, and they can be dressed hipster, they can be dressed traditional. They even have a picture of the bathroom spaces. They're much nicer than my bathrooms at home. So I would like to go to this church just to relieve myself. It's lovely. So yeah, I would say this is. I bet they've never gotten that endorsement before.
Yeah.
So church leaders, if you're looking to plant, expand, or move, check out noahseventvenues.com/church and bring your leather aprons with you because those are the one thing they don't provide.
Or just come to me. I'll provide those for you. That's a new service that I'm going to be providing via the rant is leather apron services.
Dude, there you go. We should partner with a leather apron provider and make a Happy Rant branded leather apron. I think this would be amazing. We need to get.
I have the capacity. I have the capability.
Baby, I know you do. We need to get into the hipster leather goods market. Piper, I feel like you could swing a cat in any direction in Nashville and hit like a hipster leather goods purveyor.
Absolutely. I carry one hipster leather goods item with me at all times, and it's a leather portfolio that my moleskin notebook. So I take all my notes for meetings and stuff and work in a moleskin, and it goes in a leather portfolio, and it's debossed with a logo on it, but it's not the Happy Rant logo, which means it's not as cool as it could be.
Dude, we need Happy Rant leather goods. I would carry those proudly. And leather apron, I would wear it. I would wear it in just day-to-day life. So purveyors of hipster leather goods, if you're out there, we know you are. We want to do business with you. So we want to enter into a corporate contract.
You would look like such a traditional butcher if you wore a leather apron. It would be spectacular.
Dude, I would love that. I could wear a white T-shirt and jeans and a leather apron. I would look like a hipster traditional butcher. I love it.
Ronnie would look like a cobbler.
I love that, man. I love that.
I would just look like what I've always dreamed of being.
Well, as you know, my cobbler here in Jackson died. I had a guy who would cobble my boots. I've got this pair of boots that I've gotten resold like 3 times.
Dude, how do you exist in a town without a cobbler, Big T? That's my
Maybe I'm gonna have to find a new cobbler. That's my issue. This guy was really advanced in age, and
of course he was.
I heard through the like boot cobbling community that he passed away.
There's never been a cobbler under 70 that's ever existed.
Dude, exactly. Although, is that going to become a hipster like vocation now? Like,
It already
hey,
is.
yeah, like I'm cobbling shoes.
I
That's
feel
my
like
thing.
hipsters don't wear shoes that are high quality enough to need to be cobbled. Like if you're wearing Toms, you can't really do anything with them when they wear out.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's is kind of.
Chuck Taylors can't really do anything with those.
Boys. I mean, yeah, but they're wearing hipsters are wearing boots these days, man. There's a lot of cobbling going on, so it's
There's a growing young cobbling community.
It's a growing young cobbling industry that's designed just for dudes that make that lifetime purchase of boots. That one.
Maybe do you have a cobbling stand there at Substance Ashland? Like, can I come and get my boots cobbled? Yeah,
Right,
I can get my boots cobbled at church. Yeah.
You can come and get a cup of coffee. You can buy a leather apron and get your boots cobbled.
Gosh, that's perfect.
Ted,
I may have to make a trip.
Was your cobbler by any chance of Eastern European descent?
I don't think he was. Pipe, do you know my cobbler potentially? This is amazing.
I have known 2 or 3 over the years in different cities. All of them are Eastern European, and you're right. They're all somewhere of indeterminate age between 70 and 112. They're all like really crusty in terms of like gruff, but also they'll take really good care of you. They'll bend over backwards. You know, everything you hand them, they're like, oh, this is tragic. Like the loss of a shoe affects them.
Dude,
They're like the same person, which is why I wondered if your cobbler might be of the same family.
Well, guys, like I'm going to be a cobbler someday, but I have to wait like 30 years.
Yeah, you're still a little young for it.
Oh, I'm way too. They won't even consider training me until I'm 64.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Well,
So you're lying about your age now? Is that what I'm gathering, Ron?
what?
I mean,
Yeah, Ron's 24.
arithmetic is tough. I know. Not really something that pastors have to do usually.
Yeah, no, it's not my thing, obviously.
Ron's a young pastor. You know, he's one of these young up and coming.
I'm like all pastors who just have to admit that admin's not my thing.
Oh yeah. What pastor admits that admin is their thing?
This is what I get from all young pastors. Ronnie, I mean, you're probably going to be shocked at this, but number one, I'm an introvert, and number two, dude, I don't know. I mean, admin's not my thing. That's what I hear 10 out of 10 times. Yeah.
Dude, how shocking given like the persona work, you know.
Yeah, given the current cultural climate, it's like I would not expect you to be anything other than an introvert and have nothing to do with admin. In fact, if you told me the opposite, we don't even have a conversation.
But
given the fact that your little outfit costs like $4,000, you know, I'm shocked that you don't have the gift for admin.
Until they give you their Enneagram number, you can't determine if they're really of church planting quality, though.
Well, I don't even talk to them until, I mean, it's like, don't tell me your name till you tell me your number, and then we'll see if we have a conversation.
So they walk up and they're like, 4-wing 5, I'm Will. And you're like,
and then
okay,
they hear this.
good.
They hear a click.
Yeah.
Actually, a click on the other end. Their resume is just a number. Like it's just a page.
It used to be a busy signal back in the '80s, but we don't have those anymore. So.
Oh, so vintage, baby.
Oh, absolutely. I put like a busy signal app on my phone because that's what I gotta have.
Absolutely, gotta have it. Well, boys, speaking of churches and church planting, and issues related to churches and issues related to churches in our very unique corner of the Christian subculture. My former colleague, my equal, my peer in book writing for Christians, Kevin DeYoung, recently dropped a very, very controversial piece on the Gospel Coalition that said, and I quote, that preachers should probably preach 5 minutes less than they're currently preaching. And I tell you what, when I read this, I stood up and cheered, right? I've been advocating for this for years, right? Although for me, it's not 5 minutes less, it's like 15 minutes less. But I want to unpack this for a minute because I actually think the content of the piece was really good. It speaks to sort of the cultural shifts that we experience in our little church subculture. And I know I've mentioned this ad nauseum on the program, Pipe, so often that you're probably sick of it. But when I listen to old sermons of your dads from time to time, like from the 90s, they're short. They're like 28 minutes. But now all Reform guys feel like they have to go 55 minutes. And I'm curious as to when that cultural shift took place and if we're ever going to swing back. And if maybe KDY's article was the first step in a shorter sermon direction. Boys, your thoughts. Piper, why don't you weigh in on this first?
Well, my first thought when I saw the headline was, that would be fantastic because that would get most Reformed guys just under an hour.
Yeah,
5 minutes
exactly.
less, come in at
Sneak it
a
right
solid
in
like
the hour.
58 minutes. That's
Yep.
fantastic, which means that I tend to agree with you that I wondered if it was maybe a misprint. Maybe they forgot the 1. It was supposed to be 15, or maybe even a 2. Should have been 25, because you cut 25 minutes off the average Reformed guy, and they're at about 40 minutes, which is the top end of what a sermon ought to be. So, all joking aside, I was also baffled that Kevin DeYoung, of all people, would be advocating for shorter sermons, just because he's sort of the heart and center of the thoughtful Reformed crowd. So not like the insane Reformed crowd, but the thoughtful Reformed crowd. And you don't hear a lot about sort of methodology from that crowd, and length of sermon is a methodology kind of thing. Like, what is the most effective way to communicate? So I was pretty shocked and pretty thankful to see that from him, just in terms of sort of beginning to consider things from a different light.
Yeah, exactly. And methodology is sort of like beneath that crowd usually, and it seems like shorter sermons would be the last thing they would talk about.
Well, anything pragmatic is considered. That's like a bad word for that crowd in general. So to see, I mean, of course, he didn't use the term pragmatism, but it's a fairly pragmatic argument. Yeah,
most definitely. Ron, how was this article? I'm sure sent shockwaves through the pastoral community. How was this received in your subculture?
I don't think most people would agree. So the dudes I know, the friends I have, I don't think anybody thinks that sermons shouldn't be shorter. I think it's, do you have the experience to actually shorten them, have the maturity to shorten them? Because again, really at the end of the day, I think the best preachers preach shorter because they just, they have that level of maturity and intellect and built-in knowledge to be able to do it well. One of the things though so this is one of the things that cracks me up about the article though, right? Because I read the article, and what I love about KDY, and what I love it when people say this, because I want to almost write a follow-up article, and I probably will, that will just speak into
that would be the most gospel coalition thing you should do. How we should think about shorter sermons.
Absolutely.
I love it.
But it's critical, and this is part of what my criticism is this. I love it when dudes say, here's the problem, guys. What I've realized through the years is that I don't have to say everything. What I realize is that, hey, you know what, man? There's 2 other sermons in this that I can preach down the road. And you know what my response to that always is? It's like, dude, you know what? Like, I'm lucky if I get 1 sermon out of my prep, much less like looking at the text and thinking, oh, you know what? I just got to pick one of the 4 sermons that I was able to like come up with during my preparation. I mean, dude, I go into the pulpit with like a half a sermon that I somehow turn into a whole sermon every Sunday, much less thinking like, oh my gosh, it's just so hard for me to pare it down. Like, dude, I just hope I have the material to preach it all. Right.
Dude, so we can get to 55 minutes.
Oh my goodness, man. Yeah, it's but like that whole mentality is just insanity to me. Just crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think, do you think that it seems like there's sort of a blind spot potentially to the privileged position of the preaching pastor?
Yes.
The idea that your sole job is to look at commentaries and build a sermon and occasionally show up to meetings. So, I mean, you're talking minimum 17, 20 hours a week working on the sermon. Some of these guys significantly more than that. And if you're
35 hours. Yeah.
If you're a kind of the jack of all trades pastor, because it's a small church or you're a church planter, like you're lucky to get 12 hours or 10 to put into concentrated sermon prep. So yeah, I think the idea of I don't have to say it all really implies that you've had about double or triple the time to figure out all the things that could be said.
Well, and that's exactly the truth, because at the end of the day, dude, I mean, I'm really happy that I got like 2 of the points that I wanted. I'm hoping that 3rd point gets fleshed out while I'm preaching. And hey, I got to read like the majority of that one commentary so that at least I'm not speaking lies. And like, that's about, I mean, that's about what it is. That's where I'm at.
Maybe let's talk brass tacks on this. Have you, and I truly don't know the answer to this, so there's no like hidden agenda. Have you ever published a piece with a gospel coalition? Like, is it the kind of thing where you could write the follow-up and feel like pretty confident that that's gonna run?
I mean, I don't know if they would. It would have to look like I wasn't just coming, being so anti, right?
Yeah.
But
sure.
There's something when the A-list guys, kind of write on methodology, kind of going back to what you guys talked about in the beginning, where you have to be so careful because you're assuming, like what Pipe really aptly said, that everybody's coming at it with sort of the same abilities and the same time and the same toolbox and all of those things. And it's like, oh my gosh, man, it's like, yeah, not even close.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
seriously.
For sure.
Well, I think that's reflective of sort of all church leadership. I mean, there's a movement away from this, but for a long time, all church leadership stuff has been built on the basic foundation of megachurch, which is an entirely different structure. I mean, I'm not making any sort of moral or judgmental statement about that, but simply, if you're giving leadership advice to the pastor of a 120-person church and you have 1,200 people or 12,000 people, they're not even remotely the same thing. And so I think the same is true because at those bigger churches, you have a preaching pastor. At the smaller churches, you have a pastor and a half for everything. So, I mean, it's consistent with how church leadership stuff has been written for years.
But you know what else is funny, though, you guys? This is the other thing that never gets talked about. It also kind of plays into the fact that every preacher out there that preps sermons kind of has the same type of personality. So they geek out on doing word studies, and they're like those guys that like to get technical about, like, every dotting of the I and crossing of the T. It's like, I'm just like, for better or for worse, I'm just not one of those kinds of preachers anyway. I more just try to get the big, what's the overall theme that the guy's, driving at, and then we'll build it out from there. So like that assumes that like everybody just, man, if I only had 40 hours to spend on a sermon so that I could break down and parse out like every single syllable, I would do that. My whole thing is like, dude, if I had 40 hours, I still wouldn't be doing that. That's just not the kind of preacher I am. That's
you
not
just
how
described
I preach.
Andy Stanley to a T.
Oh, dude. Shoot. You just got me in trouble. What do you
Maybe you take away, listen, Big R, you take away all the money and you take away all the fame and all the decadence. You and Andy are basically the same person, per Barnabas Piper.
Hey, Resonance, can you take out this part, right? Because
those guys don't even listen.
You just leveled Andy at me, and now I got to go back and re-say everything I said. Thanks, Pipe.
You're welcome. We can reconcile later. I just figured it was good for a joke.
I mean, the son of John Piper's like, yeah, I'm critical of you now, Big R, because you don't parse out the Greek. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Are you even reformed?
Yeah, right. I know.
All right. If we 30-second sidebar on Greek. I took first semester Greek twice, and I made it through half of second semester Greek. So I do not throw stones at anybody who struggles with parsing Greek. I was making a different joke. I'm the worst at Greek.
Nice.
Well, my kid's 15. He goes to classical school. He's studying Greek this year. So
I thought it was Latin, baby. I thought they did Latin at classical.
Baby, they switched him from Latin to Greek. I think because the Latin was too hard, so they let him pick up something easy like Greek.
Oh, so he's just having a gay old time then, isn't he?
Como se dice Greek. Yeah. Oh, he's pumped. He's loving life. Yeah.
I mean, you have so many issues to work out with that kid already that he's angry about. It's incredible.
Oh yeah. I'm giving him reasons to rebel, so that's good. Well, baby, given what you've just admitted on the program about your methodology, your preaching, your prep.
I don't even know what I admitted, but yeah, carry on.
Given the fact that you and Andy Stanley are basically the same guy,
that's right.
It may be time for you to look for another job soon. And that actually builds into our next topic. So there was a little bit of a flap on social media. I know this only because Piper shared it. The guy, and you got a job. He was from the Cosby Show, right? I feel like this guy was
Jeffrey Owens.
Yeah, he was a really endearing Cosby Show actor. And
was he Theo?
No, he wasn't Theo. He was.
I didn't go IMDb. And I don't remember. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, he was the son. He was married to like the oldest Huxtable daughter, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, the second oldest. Yeah, kind of the. Yeah. No, you're right. The oldest one. Yeah, the real conservative one.
Yeah, the conservative one, and he was kind of conservative anyway. He, I guess, got outed as someone who has like a real job. Like he works at Trader Joe's or whatever. And I don't know, what was the fallout from this, Piper? The fallout was
So he was job shamed, which apparently you can just add shamed to the end of anything these days, which basically means somebody made fun of you for something. But so somebody snapped a picture of him working at Trader Joe's, and there was, mean social media posts about it because he had been a prominent actor, like, what was that, 25 years ago, 30 years ago? And then he had this, his response was this essentially, all jobs have value, all jobs are equal, working hard, there's dignity in working hard. That was sort of his response. So he wasn't sort of clapping back at the mean people, but rather giving a defense of his work, or of his working, I should say. And it raised a stir, and you've got people, and I don't think anybody is taking shots at him further, but it created a conversation about the dignity of work and that kind of thing.
Yeah, good for him, man, for having a job. And I mean, as someone who's like had a lot of crappy jobs in pursuit of, is somebody like running a vacuum in the background? What is that?
Yeah, that's me. I'm vacuuming while we're doing the show.
Are you vacuuming? Good, baby. Redeem this time.
Yeah, I'm wearing my leather apron.
Oh, it's like a throwback to the old episodes when Ted used to record like right next to the sink while somebody was washing dishes and things like that. It was
that was me. I used to, like in the Trogs days, I would unload the dishwasher.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be vintage right now, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were doing your other job, which was like, cleaning hotel rooms or whatever.
Well, it's not sermon prep.
Yeah. We know it's not sermon prep.
Cleaning Hyatt places is your other job.
Whatever Andy Stanley does in his free time. I don't know. Like counting all the money, maybe. But anyway, like from where I sit, good on this guy for, working, providing. I think it's a non-thing, except that like of all the crappy jobs that I did when I was freelancing, I feel like the crappiest would be working at Trader Joe's, just because like spending your workday like trying to placate hipsters and help them find things would be really hard. So tip of the cap to this guy for doing that hard work. And I don't know, do you guys have thoughts on this, Big R? Do you have an opinion on this one?
Well, yeah, what's funny, man, about what you just said is like if there's ever one of those kinds of jobs that you would like to work at, it would be like if you've been to Trader Joe's, like the cashiers and the workers there are among like the happiest people like you've ever met. They're just they're super friendly. Yeah, that's the whole kind of vibe there, is like it's almost like they're doing something that's it's they're taking what they're doing, they're redeeming it, because again, we're in a place where it's all fair trade food and coffee, and there's like they have Trader Joe's kind of has a mission behind what they do. So everybody there, it's not like going into like your garden variety like supermarket, right? Like everybody there is pumped. They are stoked. Seriously, they treat you so nice. You almost like kind of think, dude, maybe I should work here, right? I mean, they all seem so right.
I could vacuum here.
They also get paid really well, and they're good corporate benefits. Like Trader Joe's takes good care of their employees. It's not like your typical big chain where it's like pimply teenagers who don't want to be there, just like chucking your bananas back at your cart kind of thing when they bag the groceries.
By the way, though, that's why a loaf of bread That's why a loaf of bread is $19 at Trader Joe's, though.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Good care they're taking of everyone.
But it's like, that's what it is, though. So it's like the In-N-Out burger of like grocery chains. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're confusing me with Whole Foods, Ted. Whole Foods is where where everything's expensive and it's super and everybody's snobby. Trader Joe's is like. It's like Hawaiian shirts and Crocs and stuff like that. Is
it really?
Like
I was thinking of the other place.
So,
dude, it's mellow. Yeah,
it's way more laid back. And yes, you go in there and there is a way more sort of happy vibe to the place. There, almost everything there, besides like besides certain selections, is their own branded stuff, and so they can keep prices pretty reasonable. But yeah, it's a different sort of joint. But I don't know. I guess the thing that stood out to me was, everybody talks about sort of privilege and, how whiny people are and how much they think they deserve. And this guy had reached sort of fame and fortune, and now is in a position of life where he has to work to make ends meet like everybody else. And he's just doing it. And he's not, he's not like sitting around griping because he's not getting what he deserves. He's just hustling to get a job or to work his job. And I think that is deserving of significant respect. At the same time as this was buzzing, I saw another tweet from a guy, I think it was actually in response to this, where he was talking about how he came out of college and he was complaining to his dad about, the only job offer he had. It was, they were only offering him 30 grand and blah, blah, blah. And his dad looked at him and said, why don't you go earn the 30 grand instead of talking crap about jobs for a while? And just sort of like, gave him the verbal smack, which is kind of what this guy did in terms of saying, like, earn your money. Don't be a whiner. Don't be privileged. And certainly don't act as if one job has more status than another.
Yeah, and I think but even the deeper commentary on that, guys, and I would like to hear your take on this, which I think is really fascinating, is I think more than anything, people are shocked that somebody that rose to that kind of prominence, like in the entertainment world, specifically television, like would end up 25 years later having to work, like just a normal, everyman job, right? Because like we think of these guys because of being, where they were, they're nationally known, television personalities, like somehow they're supposed to be set for life. And I think it's almost a shock of everybody seeing somebody like that. I'm thinking, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me that if I got to the status he got, it's not enough to like carry me through life? And it's like, in fact, well, yeah, because life dishes things out that nobody expects. And you have no idea if that would be you. America
hasn't seemed to realize that being famous doesn't come with a paycheck.
Right.
I mean, like,
unless you're a Kardashian, right?
Well, even that doesn't. They had the paycheck, and that's how they got famous. They wouldn't be famous if they weren't rich in the first place. And then, like, if you're rich, it's much easier to get richer. But also, the man was making late 80s, early 90s money as a, 20-year-old black guy in television, which means he probably wasn't getting paid fairly for, what the network was raking in anyway.
Probably.
So, I mean, who knows what his financial reality was. But, like, say he made $100 grand a year for 3 years. That was 30 years ago. Like that money doesn't just parlay into sort of security for the next 3 decades. Yeah. That's not how money works. And I don't know. There is a strange reality where people assume that if you are well known, you are well off.
Yeah.
And that as if those two things have anything to do with each other. It's why there's the vague assumption that if you're a published author, you got paid well for that. All three of us can say, not the case.
No, you did not. Yeah,
it's false. And the same is true across the board.
Baby, we've done books together. I know for a fact we didn't get paid very well for that.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. We need to sell the facade, though. I mean, I want people to think that, like, because we did the Bridezilla of Christ 5 years ago, we're set for life, Yeah.
I define set for life. I mean, I guess we could be set for life. It depends what you mean by set for life,
Yeah, I mean, God's sovereign. So,
how long were you intending life to last? Is that the question here?
Hopefully, another month and a half, and then yes, I am set.
Like Big T, if we would have died the day after we got our advance, we would have been set.
We would have been set for life. Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Absolutely.
I am set for the average lifespan of a goldfish.
Right. There you go. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Boys, I've got time for one more quick topic, and Piper, this was yours, so I'm going to let you open the discussion on this one, but. I'm going to start it with a question. Was there a new statement for like reformed dudes to sign? I feel like there's always a statement. It was the Manhattan Declaration and then the Nashville Statement a couple years ago. And you sent something to the effect that, maybe it's not so courageous. Maybe there's not a lot on the line in terms of signing these statements. Was there a recent one? And in fact, I'm looking at our show prep and it looks like there was a social justice statement. Talk about that, Pipe.
Yeah, I didn't read the whole statement because it's longer than like the Bill of Rights and it's and more complicated and uses more big words.
Manhattan phone book,
But it's probably a typical journal entry for like John MacArthur and the other people who helped write it or something. I don't know. But it was always a statement in response to the latest hubbub about social justice and social gospel versus like just preach the gospel and that kind of thing. So all sorts of denials and affirmations about what we do and don't believe. And there was some really helpful things in it and some pretty questionable things in it that sounded a lot like, demeaning, sort of culturally demeaning things. But the question that I raised was not so much about the statement itself, but rather like what is the value in signing a statement? To me, signing a statement feels like the old people version of a hashtag. Like it's just sort of slapping your name on something with like there's absolutely zero vested interest or cost in anything. It's just sort of a public statement of, see, this is where I stand, and then you just go about your business. It's just old people hashtagging is what it seems like to me.
Yeah, and you can be assured that no one nowhere at any time will care about it. Right? Because these things never get like, pulled back out and read and like, oh, remember when, Ronnie Martin signed that statement one time? Like, wasn't that what a great moment? You know
who will pull it out is if you ever change your stance on it. People will say, remember you signed that thing. And as if that was like a lifetime commitment to anything that has legal ramifications or something like that. The other piece of it that I find fascinating is they're like, we have 2,500 signees. I'm like, 2,200 of them signed it because they saw 3 other names on there. They looked at it and they're like, oh, Vody Bauckham, John MacArthur, whoever. Yeah, I'm in. They're signing with just based on that. It's the same way that people buy books. They buy it based on the strength of the platform.
Exactly. What was the content of this statement? Like, social justice is good or social justice is bad? Like, what was the content? What are we looking at?
So it's sort of a qualified statement about what is the place of social justice and social interaction in light of gospel ministry. So, there's been a debate for literally a century or two about social gospel versus like biblical gospel, as if those two things are completely at odds, because both of them can be taken to extremes that excludes the other. So this is a conservative evangelical effort to say, what is the place of social justice in gospel ministry? I lean more social than they do, so I think that they said some unhelpful things in there, but I think they had some very on point statements about biblical realities and what is gospel truth and those kinds of things too. So it's essentially like they're trying to have the last word on that debate, which they're not going to. They're just going to be able to sign their name and be like, what this allows them to do is not argue anymore and just point. So every time somebody brings something up, they're like, it's in the statement, that statement, the one that I put my name on. And so they don't ever have to argue or blog or write. And thank God, because nobody wants to read any more of that stuff from them anyway.
So you mean to tell me it was a super long, wordy document which doesn't really clarify anything? That's shocking.
It affirms what we all knew they believed in the first place.
There you go. That's
my favorite version of a statement.
Boys, what if we were to write a statement? How many people do you think we could get?
That, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're creators, we're creatives. We're gonna have our own leather goods pretty soon. We should have a statement.
Why don't we write a statement about statements?
There you go.
Affirmed. Statements are dumb. Denied. Statements have value.
Yeah, but we got to make it like 50,000 words. Yeah, absolutely. We can sign our names and watch the other signatures roll in. I wonder how many we could get. Like truly, if we crafted a statement. Pipe, where do you set the over-under on that one? What's the Vegas line? What's Bovada saying about number of signatures we could get on a statement of some kind? 500?
So let's see. We got 3,000 and change Twitter followers. We've got 1,200 or 1,300 Facebook followers, and then our individual reach. I bet they would put it at like 750.
Ooh, 750. I might take the over on 750. I feel like we could do that.
I mean, I feel like if we got over that, that would be significant. If we got under that, I don't know that it would be heartbreaking. If we got like under 500, what are we even doing? But
yeah, exactly. That's the thing with these statements. It's a roll of the dice because you don't want that number of signatures to be sad. You know what I mean?
Does the number of signatures make it more true? So like. It levels up. It levels up in truth with every 500 signatures or something. Like so, like the first 500, you're like it's a statement. The second 500, you're like it's a pretty good statement. 1,000 to 1,500, that's an excellent statement. And you just work your way up to like can you reach canonization at like 10,000 plus signatures or something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got to think you can because the more people you get to like your thing, the truer and better it is. So. That's just the world we live in.
In which case, Ronnie, you should be really proud to be compared to Andy Stanley because a lot of people like his stuff, so it's excellent.
Dude, Stanley's looking at bare minimum like 4,000 signatures on whatever he does. So,
do you think Stanley signed that horrible statement?
I don't know anything about Stan other than like cheesy like business motivational phrases tend to come from him. So, but that's literally the only thing I know about.
I'm gonna go with no on that one.
I'm gonna go with he probably wasn't even asked. Or do you?
Dude, that's the thing. Here's an awkward thing. What if you want to sign the statement,
but you're not asked?
And the people that crafted it are like, no, we're good. No thanks.
Please take your name off of it. You're besmirching the rest of us. Although, if you go look through the list of signatures, there are some people who put down some very funny things, and a few that are a little crude and a little. They signed fake names to take shots at the creators of it, and it made me chuckle a little bit.
See, it's a slippery slope, man. You don't know what you're getting into when you craft these statements. People they're gonna get clever, So we got to be aware of that when time comes around for us to release ours. But boys, time has come around for me to go to a meeting at my son's classical school where they're going to crush my sports dreams, probably. So
that's what classical schools exist to do, Ted, to crush people's athletic dreams.
Most definitely, yeah. So this is right in the wheelhouse. So I'm going to have to sign off, boys. So I'm going to have to cut this episode of the Happy Rant short. But we have done what we always do. I feel like we've thoroughly wandered to and fro throughout these topics. And until next time, Rachel the Held Evans.
The Happy Rant is brought to you by Resonate Recordings. If you go to resonaterecordings.com, you can see the full range of services they offer. So if you're considering starting a podcast, they are the ones we recommend going with. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see their prices, to connect with them and ask any questions, and to see what they can do to help you launch, edit, master, and improve your podcast. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see what they can do to help you launch and improve your podcast.